grooving. It's what we love to do. It's what I love to do, at least, you know. I mean, I got into playing bass because, man, I just wanted to like play grooves that were like New Orleans-y, meters kind of stuff, and this kind of groove reminds me of that. You know, I love sitting down and putting on a drum track and just playing to it to get some creative juices flowing, and this is what I'd love to help you do as well. So I'm using a great drum track by my friend Derek Phillips. It's called Beatbox, and you know, there's just lots of things to play to, and great ways to find creative inspiration. And with this groove, if you want to get tab or notation, anything like that, please head over to my Patreon page, and you'll be able to find it there. Or hit subscribe if you want to check out this video and others. You know, but in the meantime, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I like to craft grooves. So in this situation, I'm listening to the drum groove, and I'm thinking, man, what does this remind me of? And it kind of, as I close my eyes and think about it, it takes me to kind of like a meters kind of space. You know, I'm a big George Porter Jr. fan, and he is just one of my favorite bass players. And this kind of reminds me a little bit of kind of the jam section of Cissy Strut. So if you're familiar with the meters tune Cissy Strut, this kind of like takes me there a little bit. But it is also something that can be, you know, thought of as just a groove that, you know, you might play with your friends as you sit down next to a drummer and they say, hey, I've got this funky groove, let's play to it. But as I create this groove, I like to think about my groove prompt, you know, where one, I think about what the drums are doing. Two, I want to listen for how the bass is going to place within the drum. So I'm really paying attention to where the kick drum is, and that's going to help me kind of choose where to place some of my notes. So one, listen to the drums for inspiration, kind of be taken to a place. Two, hear that kick drum pattern, see if it feels like the right thing to kind of match at certain moments. And then three, come up with like a harmonic prompt. So for this, kind of just playing in C, kind of go into a G chord, the 5 chord of that, returning to C. Again, very similar to what the jam section of Cissy Strut might be like. And I'm starting with something really simple, kind of just going between that root C and the 5th of it, G. So I'm just going root, finding that lower 5th. Now to give it some funk, I'm going to kind of throw in some dead notes. So you can kind of hear that before I play that G, I might go ba-bump, bump, or little dead note before playing that G. And that just adds a little something. Instead of that dead note, I could also throw in another note. Sometimes I like to play the D. Again, the D is a great choice. It's you know, part of our C scale. It's part of a G scale or a G chord as well. It's a great choice to kind of like work in that other note. It's also cool to go up and play that higher G. That was fun. You know, so right now I'm starting to get really creative and build this groove by kind of thinking about my main root note, which is C, where I'm going to, which is the G, using the D as kind of the little transitional gateway note that fits both of those harmonic prompts, and thinking that I can go higher or lower on the fretboard to land on that G. That's kind of a fun thing to go to fit the 5th above or the 5th below to kind of create some motion. Something like that, you know, where I'm really kind of focusing on toggling just between a certain small group of notes. So roots, fifths, octaves, all good choices. So this time I'm going high G, low G. And I'm not doing anything crazy, but it does create this really cool sense of motion. Now if I want to do something even more interesting, is I could throw in the octave of the C as a little, kind of like a little hiccup octave. So I'm going C, high C, playing the low C again, and then jumping down to my G. So all of a sudden I'm getting a little bit more interesting in my note choices, and sometimes I'm using the C, the octave of it. I'm going to the G, the octave of that. And then I'm also throwing in the D. And you can hear how I'm kind of navigating through all of these notes while still maintaining the integrity of the groove. Now that's super important. So the integrity here is that root, fifth, root, fifth, root, fifth, root, fifth. That's kind of the thing that is going to match your kick drum pattern. That's going to provide you with that like basis for the groove, and everything else is going to just be play. You know, it's moments to get creative. It's moments to kind of figure out what other stuff you can put in, and you know, this is where you really get to experiment and come up with things that work. Again, roots, fifths, octaves, all great. Dead notes, love doing the little octave hiccup. We could do that both on the C and the G, where this time I went C, high C, went to my G, high G. So again, kind of taking advantage of both the higher and lower versions of these notes. So it's almost like you're ping-ponging. You know, I like to think about that where you're kind of ping-ponging or toggling between different notes, and you're really just playing with motion. So as you start building your groove, just make sure that you are aware of these couple of things. One, what your groove prompt is, so your drums and where that kick drum is falling, where you want to lock in for that kind of foundational part of the groove, as well as your harmonic prompt where like, hey, I'm playing over a C chord, going to the G, coming back to C. That's a huge part of it, and that's really going to be the basis for my groove. And then figuring out what other notes you can use. Roots, fifths, octaves, always good. You know, sometimes there are other fun notes that work, like in this situation, I'm throwing the D in a lot. That works over the C chord. It's the fifth of the G chord. From a function standpoint, it's a great choice. And that's really how you can kind of get creative and build different grooves. So I hope you're able to take this lesson and use it as inspiration for your own grooves. Again, if you want to get tab, notation, backing track, anything like that, please head over to my Patreon page and support there. You'll have access to this and all other kinds of goodies for other lessons here on my channel. And yeah, I just hope that this helps you get creative, become the best bass player that you can be. So hope you had a good time today. Have fun, happy practicing, and keep it groovy.